who missed it, right on cue there. So anyone who missed it is able to watch that way. Okay, so you can follow along with our slides today if you like. You just need to navigate to the UDC Engage website, which is shown on the slide here in a moment. Chris, would you click to that next one? There we go. Okay, so that link is where you can find our slides. You would scroll down towards the bottom to find presentation materials on the right-hand side. So just a quick reminder of how we got here. The UDC project started back in 2022 with a variety of public engagement at that time, but the project was paused in fall of 23 to allow more time for public input. We restarted the project in September with phase 1 of what we called supplemental engagement because it was kind of take 2 at public engagement. So phase 1, as you might recall, if you were involved, included an online survey, 6 open houses, 2 of those I believe were online and the rest were in person, and several neighborhood meetings in December and January. And the purpose of those were intended to be broad, to learn what topics are most important to our residents. So now we're in phase 2, and these workshops are intended to focus on the topics that you all identified in phase 1. So we'll share some educational info and data to get us started in a little bit. Then we will break into small groups for discussion and Q&A. We have a number of staff and also folks from our consultant Code Studio present today to help out. Last week, we had 1 online and 1 in-person workshop about all things transportation and environment with great turnouts and discussions. So thanks to those of you that participated in those workshops. Today's topics are growth, housing, and neighborhoods. So not small topics. We will also have in-person versions of these workshops on these same topics this Wednesday, housing and neighborhoods, and Monday, growth and neighborhoods. But we'll put all the details for those upcoming events on the screen at the end of today's workshop, or you can also find it on the Engage page. So before I turn it over to staff to discuss the agenda for today and share some background info, I want to welcome Commissioners Fisher and Magic, as well as City Manager Chuck Wynn, and thank them for attending. Commissioners, did you want to take a few moments to say a few words?
Sure. Thanks so much, Director George and other staff who are participating today. And thanks very much to the public, all of you who are taking time out of your busy days, perhaps your lunch hour, to talk about our UDC. I think that is pretty cool. We have had great attendance so far, which speaks well, I think, of our community and the passion our community feels about so many issues. So I will sign off and turn it over to Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I just want to briefly thank you all for taking time. This is really important. It's great to have all your voices in the room. We have almost 80 people on this call, which I think is fantastic. Our job here really is to get a little deeper into some of the earlier discussions we had about growth and housing and neighborhoods. And so I'm looking forward to hearing this discussion, hearing your thoughts. And I'll just hand it back to Director George.
Thank you, Commissioners. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Community Development Manager, Chris Saunders.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to do some presentation on some background material. We're going to touch on a lot of different things. Undoubtedly, one of the things you'll note is that there's an awful lot of overlap. And so part of what we have created in the schedule for this meeting is the opportunity to change subjects. So if you want to start with one thing and then move to another, you're welcome to do that at any time by moving from breakout room to breakout room. But we'll create a little space to do that officially about 10 minutes after 1. So if you want to address more than one thing, please feel free to do so. Or spend all your time on one thing today and then join us for another one of the opportunities moving forward. So just a little background. Commissioner Director George mentioned we've been doing this for a while. We have 5 primary purposes that we have been doing this for, and we've had the same 5 the whole time. And I think those probably familiar with these. State compliance is a significant one for us, and I just raise it because we're in the middle of another legislative session, and chances are we may need to make a few adjustments to our draft as a result of whatever comes out of this year's legislation, as well as what came before it. Changing the code and updating it is a common thing for Bozeman. We adopted zoning back in 1935. Each of the bubbles on the diagram is a time when we did pretty much wholesale replacement of the document to deal with changing laws, changing community needs and priorities. So it is an ongoing activity that we do on a regular basis. For this one, we do have an ongoing schedule. Director George mentioned we started in the summer of 22. We have a hard deadline imposed by the state of May 17th, 2026. We're hoping to complete before then. So we're there where the arrow is, working on some engagement. After the engagement, we'll go back to some revised drafting. There is a draft ordinance out that's available through Engage Bozeman if folks are interested in seeing where that is at. There'll be revisions to that and then opportunities for further public engagement prior to any hearings or adoption activity happening. So talking broadly on growth, I'd just like to call out that this is more background information. We're not covering the growth policy today. This is focused on things related to the Unified Development Code, more of the how and what rather than the where. So hopefully that will be helpful. So Bozeman, as anybody who's lived here for a while knows, has continued to grow for a long time. So we're getting close to that 60,000 number and have seen some ups and downs and different speeds, but we certainly have seen a lot of change in the community in the last 20 years. We do think about the future, and we draw from a variety of sources for that. In 2023, the state did some trend analysis for a variety of communities in the state. The city has not adopted this. This is simply information, but wanted to point it out. This is all starting from the same beginning point, but depending on the assumptions that people use and the expectations they have about how growth happens, you can have a very significant difference in the outcome. So there's not a right or wrong one of these. They're just different ways of considering what might happen as the community continues to develop. We do have a broad range of folks in the community. Not surprisingly, we've got a pretty big group in the 20 to 29-year-old range with a major land grant institution here that does shape some of our needs for housing. And then also, as we think about how we build homes for people who are choosing to come here or grew up here and want to stay, there's a variety of things that influence what happens to the community in those decision-making processes. So this slide, similar to one that was available at the December workshops, looks at if we took the actual homes built in the 40 years between 1980 and 2020, as counted by the census, and developed them at different densities, how much land would we use up in order to meet the need for that? And so we have all of these kinds of homes in town today. So it's not a guess, it's a reality for us. And you can see there's quite a bit of difference, and the size of the community, the nature of the community would shift quite a bit as we look at different alternatives. It has been a very busy few years, most recently. This is our expected, what we've issued building permits for in the last 5 years. 2024 is returning closer to a norm that we've seen for a number of years, but the years 2020 through 2023 were very busy, probably 4 of the 5 busiest years we've ever seen in construction in the city. So it has been very active. So looking at transitioning over into what is the zoning talking about with these kinds of things. There is a zoning district conversion guide. We are making some changes, and this has been posted in the same place as the slides that Director George mentioned. So if you want to take a look at that, that's up and available. So Engage Bozeman, and then down on the right-hand side to the presentation materials for today's workshops. And it will be there. We have 5 residential districts in the current draft, allowing a range of different kinds of homes, different architectural components, heights, etc. And each of those districts has a 2-page component to it. 1 page talks about the things relating to the land itself, setbacks, how big is the lot, those kinds of things. And then one of them relating to the building itself. So a couple of different components, as you can see on the screen, lots of different elements make up all the different standards to address different areas of concern. When we put that all together and look at how that fits, it is the combination of all of them that shape the buildings that we live in and work in. And so we can't look at just one of the standards and not take into consideration the impact of the others as well. And then there's the document that you would find that's been uploaded. So kind of help showing how the existing code reads and then how it transitions into the new document.
Chris, real quick, can you sit a little closer to your mic? We've got a couple comments of people saying you're difficult to hear.
Okay, I will speak up and I will scoot up. Thank you for letting me know. So transitions is something we heard a lot about during the public comments in phase 1 and throughout the document. So when we look at transitions, we have them in the code today. We've been looking at modifying those to better address concerns that people have. Looking at how district abuts to district and how you might adapt different kinds of circumstances. So there are a series of drawings. These are from the existing document for different alternatives for different circumstances that may be if you have a higher intensity to higher intensity or higher intensity to lower intensity, etc. So that is something that we're hoping to have some discussion about with the group today. We also did some shadow study testing based on the conversations and questions that we had. Appreciate our consultants, Code Studio, helping us out with these. We took a look at the summer and winter solstices as a way of trying to pick a date that we could look at consistently that would apply throughout. And this is a summer show looking at a property that's oriented to the south and then another oriented to the west. One on the winter, so in the evening solstice. For that time, the one that's outlined in red is looking at potential redevelopment site, height that's allowed today and would continue to be allowed and the consequences that come from that. And then also looking from the west. So a couple of different alternatives to look at orientation. And as you can imagine, the number of combinations of angle of sun and orientation of building can be huge, but we picked these two as a couple of indicative ones that would allow some focused conversation and help folks visualize some pretty esoteric math. Looking at housing, we have a lot of different kinds of housing in Bozeman. It's pretty cool. It's one of the things we hear comments about, both from the public who are pleased with what we have, and also people who are coming to visit, who are impressed with the range of different alternatives for housing that people have. And that housing has been, in some cases, newly constructed, and in some cases been here for a very long time, all kinds of different styles and sizes. One of the things we cannot talk about housing in Bozeman without addressing, however, is affordability. This code effort that we're working on now does not address specific price points or anything like that as part of this work, but felt this information could be helpful. This is some information that the county put together back in 2003 for a housing study that they did. And the red line that you see going up and down there is 120% of the area median income. So median income is 50% of the people earn less, 50% of the people earn more. So this is better than half of the wage earners are to the left of that line. And the blue angle there is where homes are actually selling at. And so it is tough to find for sale housing for folks who are earning that median income. So that's raised a question on naturally occurring affordable housing. We've taken a look at that. There's a lot of different alternatives and ideas that people have floated in various suggestions and conversations throughout this process. So we, with the assistance of Code Studio, thanks for all their hard work, took a look at some information from Zillow and kind of said, all right, what is available at different lower ends of different kinds of homes. So looked at mobile homes, condominiums, detached homes. And I'll just remind everybody, don't worry too much about reading all the details. That's why we put it on the website so that you can go back and browse it later. So this is from February of this year. So the great majority of for sale homes are well above the $500,000 mark. That's just where we're at. But we also took a look at some other communities, happened to use Portland for this example, where they all same types of homes, detached homes, condominiums, mobile homes, and looking at there, and they do have some lower prices. One of the distinguishing factors we found is a difference in the age of construction. So the great majority of homes in Bozeman have been built in 40 years or less. And so they're fairly recent. A lot of the affordable homes that Portland and other places are showing are coming in as considerably older. So in this case, Bozeman homes built by 2015 and after, where things are for sale, most of them are more recent homes. When we look at Portland, it's the flip. So they have a much larger housing stock and an older housing stock that allows them to fit some of those kinds of things in. Similar pattern that we saw with rent, looked at similar kinds of homes that were available. Price range, cost there is broad as well. And then also Portland as well as Bozeman. Looking at neighborhoods. General density housing is a subject we've heard. How do we bring homes into existing areas without overwhelming them? So certainly an area of a lot of public comment. I think most folks are familiar with accessory dwelling units. It's something that Bozeman's had allowed for getting close to 3 decades now. And we have hundreds of them throughout the community. So that's certainly something we have experience with. There's also other alternatives. In this case, someone built a similar size multi-unit apartment in an area that has similar sized homes. And in some cases, the homes are larger, but are designed in ways that allow them to match in. And then cottages is also an option. We have not very many of those in Bozeman, but we have a couple of them. A couple of projects like that. We have some folks who expressed some interest in doing some more of it. So we're hoping that that will be something that we see more of in the future. So that's kind of the quick run through on the orientation. We are going to have 6 breakouts, 2 for each of the topics, 2 for growth, 2 for housing, 2 for neighborhoods. Feel free to join either one, regardless of which one it is. There should be equal conversation, same subjects and questions being addressed in either one. So if you don't happen to have a quarter handy to flip a quarter and decide which one you want to go to, you might pick, the first one if your last name starts A through L and M through Z can go to the second one or whatever. So whichever one you choose to do, it's just fine.